The United States of America is having a birthday, 250 years old. And to celebrate tonight, we're going to talk about the 25 best heavy metal albums to come from America. Next. Welcome, metal enthusiasts, to a celebratory episode of the Metal Dude Abides. I was lucky enough to be alive when America turned 200, and it's about the time I started down this metal journey. And now I'm also lucky enough to see number 250. And I thought, what a better way to celebrate America than to put together the best heavy metal across those 50 some odd years. And I was noticing something. This is a non-political channel, by the way. But I was noticing that Donald Trump, our president, was having a little bit of trouble putting some acts together. And some of the bands that he's been reaching out to were not really the best. Milli Vanilli? Some washed-up country western singers? No. Donald Trump, listen to me. If you want to really make this celebration pop, I've got a list of bands here. I've got a list of albums here. I've got a list of songs here. You need to turn the 250th birthday into a metal celebration. And with that said, without further ado, let's talk about the top 25 heavy metal albums of all time. Before we get started on this list, we're going to go through the top 25 albums in American heavy metal and hard rock history. I want to make this very clear. When I talk about heavy metal and hard rock, I am a big tent metal hard rock person. So you're going to see some hard rock and you're going to see some heavy metal. The other thing I want to point out is in order to make this a comprehensive list, I really only am going to allow each artist one selection. We're not going to have the top 25 heavy metal albums in American history and have 6 of them belong to Metallica. Every band only gets one album. So let's go to the list. Whenever you start looking at the history, you have to respect the founding fathers. And I believe the founding father of American heavy metal was none other than Alice Cooper. Now, back in the early 70s, the heavy metal scene was dominated by Britain. America was a little slow to the game, but one of the first people to break through that was Alice Cooper. He'd had a couple of big hits, I Am 18, School's Out, but I think his most tremendous album, his most brilliant album, came out in 1973, his 6th studio album, Billion Dollar Babies. Not only do I love the title track of this album, I love the song No More Mr. Nice Guy. But the whole album is really good. If you've never really gone all the way back to the beginning of American metal and you're not familiar with Alice Cooper, I say start right here. Billion Dollar Babies. Coming in at number 24, Halestorm with The Strange Case of. I believe that America has put out the 2 best female hard rock and heavy metal singers. Gotta love me some Ann Wilson from Heart, who dominated the hard rock scene for several decades. But this century, I gotta give my nod to Lzzy Hale. And Halestorm's best album is this one right here, their sophomore album, The Strange Case of. You have 2 huge hits off this album, I Miss the Misery and Love Bites. So do I. But you also have so many other good hits. Freak Like Me, Here's to Us, Miss Hyde, the list goes on and on. Now, one thing I will say about Halestorm, their last album, if you haven't been following them since then, their last album, Everest, is also very good. So once again, coming in at 24, Halestorm, The Strange Case of. Coming in at number 23, System of a Down with their album Toxicity. Now, I'll admit I was a little late to the System of a Down party. It took me a little bit of time to get used to those Tarzan-like vocals, those nonsensical lyrics, and the frantic, almost manic pace of their music. But this is one of those bands that's really grown on me over the years, and this album is, I think, their absolute best. It contains, in particular, 3 songs I want to point out. Number 1, probably their biggest hit of all time, Chop Suey. But while that's their most popular song, there's a couple of songs on there that I like even more. Toxicity, so good. And the soaring, haunting aerials. This album, I believe, is the prime jewel of the System of a Down collection, and it comes in at number 23, Toxicity. Coming in at number 22, Dokken, Under Lock and Key. When you look at what I call, affectionately, the big hair metal movement of the 80s that came out of Los Angeles, California, I think one of the best bands that came out of that movement was Dokken, for 2 big reasons. Number 1, very few bands in that era had a singer who had as much range and charisma as one Don Dokken. Say what you will about Don Dokken, that man can sing. The other is George Lynch, one of the best guitarists in that entire decade. Unfortunately, Don and George didn't get along too well, and so Dokken had a pretty short shelf life. But they put out some absolute classics in their day. I think there's 2 in particular that I wrestled with. The first being Tooth and Nail, and this one, Under Lock and Key, that just have hit after hit after hit. Under Lock and Key, you have The Hunter, In My Dreams. I have a soft spot for It's Not Love. All of them good, but this whole album is sensational. Great vocals, great guitarists. This is hair metal at its absolute best. 22, Dokken, Under Lock and Key. Coming in at number 21, Testament with The Ritual. I love me some thrash metal. The 80s and early 90s were such a great time for the thrash metal movement. And as everybody knows, there is a big 4 in thrash metal. But if I were to have a 5th member to that band into that list, it would definitely be Testament. I love me some Testament. In fact, Testament might be my 3rd favorite thrash metal band from that entire movement. Love them to death. What a great band who just has put out banger after banger after banger. Now, The Ritual has, well, first of all, it has 2 amazing songs on it, just to start. Electric Crown, one of the best songs in the entire Testament catalog. And I'm going to go with another ballad, Return to Serenity. One of the things Testament did better than all of their competitors is they really knew how to string together a nice ballad. Now, The Ritual is not without its controversy, and some thrash metal purists are not as big a fan of this album as I am. And the reason is, this is kind of a blend, if you will. Yes, it's thrash metal, but it has a lot of traditional heavy metal mixed in with it. Traditional heavy metal, thrash metal, mixed together? Yes, please. I love this album. Number 21, Testament with The Ritual. Coming in at number 20, Ted Nugent with his album, Ted Nugent. Listen, you can't have a celebration about America without putting in Uncle Ted, Sweaty Teddy, the Nuge. We talk about the founding fathers of hard rock and heavy metal. I would say Ted Nugent really bridges the gap between Jimi Hendrix and Eddie Van Halen. In the 1970s, there was no greater personality or guitar player from America like Ted Nugent. And his first album is one of those albums that's just perfect. Of course, it has the classic hit that everybody knows, Stranglehold, but it also has Stormtroopin', Hey Baby, Just What the Doctor Ordered, Motor City Madhouse. And just a little trivia question for all of you that are as old as I am. When WKRP in Cincinnati, the TV show, decides they're going to switch to a rock and roll format, the first song they play, Queen of the Forest, right off this Ted Nugent album. It's time to put Ted Nugent in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Enough said. Coming in at number 20, Sweaty Teddy, Ted Nugent. Coming in at number 19, Death, with their fantastic album, Symbolic. I don't think many casual observers of the metal music would associate Florida with the beginning of the American death metal movement, but here we are. Florida, of all places, the birthplace of American death metal. Kind of crazy. But no doubt about it, Death was probably the most influential death metal band from the States. Now, at this point in their career, they're kind of experimenting a little bit. Gone are the very raw days. Now they're taking that raw aggression of death metal and they're mixing it with some progressive metal and really coming up with some brilliant stuff. This album is just top to bottom good, but two of my favorite death songs are right here. The opening track and the title track, Symbolic. Maybe my favorite, but close behind is the epic Crystal Mountain. So if you like death metal and you like progressive metal, go into the Death catalog and pull up this bad boy, Symbolic, one of the all-time greats. Coming in at number 18, Metal Church with The Dark. Now I want to make this very clear. This is not a slight on any version of Metal Church, but I do like the very first version of metal, the original Metal Church, the best. Metal Church has been consistent over the decades, don't get me wrong. Great music throughout, but those first two albums, and in particular, I love the vocals of David Wayne. I love the work of founding member Kurt Vanderhoof. Those first two albums cannot be beat. The first album, Metal Church, came very close to securing this nomination, but I think I like The Dark just a little bit better. And what puts it over the top, a couple of unbelievable classic Metal Church songs, Ton of Bricks, and my favorite Metal Church song of all time, Watch the Children Pray. So if you've come into the Metal Church family a little bit later, make sure you go back to the originals. I do believe they are the absolute best. Two amazing metal classics. Coming in at number 17, Skid Row with Slave to the Grind. I believe that Skid Row would have been one of the biggest bands on the planet, except they had two things working against them. Number one, they came into the hair metal movement a bit late. Their debut album didn't come out until 1989, and as you know, the hair metal runway was kind of coming to a close pretty quickly. The second thing that worked against them is the same thing that worked against Dokken. Lead singer Sebastian Bach and the rest of the band weren't really getting along very well. So they really only put out these two sensational albums before things started to unravel. Now, the one thing I've always admired about Skid Row is after a huge commercial success with that debut album, their second album was actually heavier and more intense. Most bands go the other way, right? They come out, they do their thing, and then they start sliding into that commercial territory. Skid Row went the other direction, said, not only are we a big band on the planet, we're going to get heavier. I have always admired that about them. The opening of this album, two of the best songs you're ever going to hear, Monkey Business and Slave to the Grind. And if you want to see or hear a song that really shows off Sebastian Bach's pipes, the very closer of this album, Wasted Time, is a vocal juggernaut. Sebastian Bach is a very underrated singer, one of the greatest singers in all of American metal. Coming in at number 17, go check it out, Slave to the Grind. Coming in at number 16, Aerosmith with their album, Toys in the Attic. The Bad Boys from Boston, the Toxic Twins. Aerosmith is one of the coolest stories in all of hard rock and heavy metal in that they had two great runs where they became the biggest band of their time. Their first run came in the mid-70s. They had a string of great albums. But as what happened to a lot of bands in the late 70s, the wear and tear of the road and way too much cocaine broke the band apart. Well, in the mid-80s, Aerosmith decides they're going to try to patch things up and get back together. Not only do they come back, get back together, have a big tour, they end up having another huge successful run where once again through the late 80s and early 90s, they once again return to the top of the metal ladder. But I am going to go back to the first run because I think Toys in the Attic is their absolute best. Barely beaten out their next album, by the way, Rocks. Toys in the Attic has so many classics. The title track is very good. They have two legendary songs that came off this album. Walk This Way, Sweet Emotion. They've got some deep tracks on here too. I love Adam's Apple, and I love the humor and the sexual innuendo of Big 10-inch Record. Gotta love you some Aerosmith. Mid-70s Aerosmith, hard to beat. Toys in the Attic. Coming in at number 15 might be a bit of a controversial pick. Machine Head with their album, The Blackening. Why controversial, you ask? Well, because I think a lot of people's opinions of Machine Head vary on what era of Machine Head they are listening to. Let me just say, Machine Head gets off to a really hot start. But then they kind of wander off into this kind of nu metal direction and aren't really very good at all. And then out of the blue, in 2007, their sixth studio album, The Blackening, they just drop it on the world, and it's an absolute masterpiece. And then they put out a couple of good albums right after that, and then once again kind of go through a little bit of a lull period. I would even say right now, if you are a Machine Head fan, the very last album they did, Unatoned, is also very good. But I think people, have just kind of soured on them over the years. Do not make that same mistake. Robb Flynn and the boys have put together, while not a consistent library, some of the best metal albums of all time. And this one, if you've never heard The Blackening, you need to go check it out. Once again, it is a metal masterpiece. Coming in at number 14, Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil. I believe Motley Crue is one of the founding fathers of the California hair metal movement. Some people might make the mistake of saying Van Halen because Van Halen was like the first big band to come out of LA. But if you look at the hair metal movement in particular, I think it starts right here with Motley Crue. What an amazing band. Now, my history with Motley Crue is a little bit spotty. Some of their later works I'm not as into. But right here in 1983, Shout at the Devil, dare I say, a perfect album. It has so many hits to choose from on this thing. It's got the title track. It's got Looks That Kill. And oh, by the way, it didn't hurt that Motley Crue really understood how to put videos together too. Remember, MTV's a huge mover of music at this point. They do a great cover of the old Beatles classic Helter Skelter, Red Hot, Too Young to Fall in Love, 10 Seconds to Love, Knock 'em Dead Kid, one of the great albums of the early 80s. And just as a side note, the drumming on this album from Tommy Lee, top notch. Coming in at number 14, Shout at the Devil. Coming in at number 13, Fallen by Evanescence. I believe that this album is the absolute best gothic metal album of all time. This album is also a perfect album in that every song on here is great. Amy Lee's haunting vocals are on another level on this album. What are the songs on this album? Well, it starts off with Going Under. Oh, that was the first song I heard off this album, and I was just blown away. Like, when one of those never heard of Evanescence, hear this song, and I'm like, who is this? This is great. Bring Me to Life, Everybody's Fool, My Immortal. And I'll give you a deep track that I think is actually the best song on the whole album. It's got so much heart to it. Hello. If you've never heard that song, it's not a big hit. It's like, the 9th track on the album. Man, I can't tell you how good that song is. The whole album's good. Best gothic metal album of all time. Evanescence, right here with Fallen. Coming in at number 12, another perfect album. I guess we've hit that part of the list. Van Halen 1. Oh, if you bought this album way back in 1978, you put that needle to the vinyl and you get prepared to be blown away because nothing sounded like Van Halen. The production on this was amazing. I don't think Van Halen quite gets the credit that they deserve because a lot of music in the 80s mimicked Van Halen. But make no mistake, when Van Halen came out, nobody played guitar like this. And 10 years later, everybody played guitar like this. That's how much of an influential album it is. You had David Lee Roth just stalking around the stage. You had Eddie Van Halen playing this wonderful stuff. Listen to these tracks. Running with the Devil. Eruption, maybe the greatest guitar solo in the history of recorded metal. You Really Got Me, the Kinks old version. Maybe my favorite, Ain't Talking About Love, Janie's Crying, Atomic Punk, Ice Cream Man, I'm on Fire. That's how it ends. The most unbelievable album. And like I say, if you were around in 1978, you know what I'm talking about. This was a game changer. Not only is it one of the greats, not only is it perfect, one of the most influential albums that's going to shape music for the next decade. Coming in at number 11, Dirt by Alice in Chains. In the early 90s, heavy metal came to a sudden and abrupt end. Hair metal was gone, traditional metal was gone, and we were told grunge was going to be the new thing. And for a hot second it was, and you can see why the record industries and everybody were so infatuated. Some of these grunge albums are absolutely juggernauts. And this one right here, Dirt, is so sensational. Once again, hit after hit. Listen to some of these songs. Them Bones, really dark. By the way, Lane Staley's voice on this album, sensational. Down in a Hole, Rooster. You have Angry Chair, one of the heavier songs on the album. You have Wood, which was probably their biggest hit off this album. Just song after song. If you bypass the whole grunge movement, a lot of people are going to point you to Nirvana. A lot of people are going to point you to Pearl Jam. I'm going to point you right here to Alice in Chains, Dirt. All right, before we get into the top 10, let me give you a few honorable mentions. You may be asking yourself, Metal Dude, these are all fantastic albums, but I don't see anything new in here. Isn't there any great new albums coming out? And I'm going to tell you, yes, indeed, there are. Now, I'm always hesitant to put brand new albums out on a big list like that because you have the whole thing of recency bias. The Hall of Fame in many sports says, rule of thumb, wait 5 years to really determine whether something's a classic or not. So I decided to leave these off the list, put them in honorable mention because they're all within the last 5 or 6 years. But I won't be around when America celebrates their 300th birthday, so here's just a few that might be on that list in 50 years. Rivers of Nile, with their self-titled album, Rivers of Nile. What a great progressive album. Flotsam and Jetsam, I Am the Weapon. This band's been around since the 80s. I think their last album, absolutely their best. From right here in my home state of Colorado, Allergion, with the Ossuary Lens. Technical geniuses, those guys. Black Braid with Black Braid 3. Not a huge black metal fan, but you can't not listen to Black Braid and understand the beauty. And talking about America, 250, we're going to go beyond the 250, before the 250, and explore the Native American culture on this one. Really good stuff. Gate Creeper with Dark Superstition. For those of you who don't know, before I lived in Colorado, I lived in Arizona. Shout out to my Arizona fans. How about a little doom metal, Crypt Sermon with the Stygian Rose? And again, going back to modern day thrash, Warbringer. Their last album, Wrath and Ruin, was sensational. All right, let's get back to the top 10. Coming in at number 10, might get a little spicy here, because I'm going with Anthrax, The Sound of White Noise. Why is this a spicy pick? Well, let's be honest. Most Anthrax fans are going to point to the Joey Belladonna era of Anthrax for their best work. But I'm just not one of those people. I think if you take a look at the absolute best Anthrax album of all time, it's the John Bush era, and it's this album right here. So many good songs. You take the vocal prowess of John Bush, that intensity of Armored Saint. Anthrax, this album is just thunderous. Such great percussion, such deep bass. Love it. I love Only. I love Black Lodge. I love 1,000 Points of Hate. This thing just delivers. Very late in the Anthrax catalog. Again, many fans might have left when Joey Belladonna was taken out. Joey Belladonna's back in the band, so the John Bush era's maybe a little bit shoved to the side now that they went back to their original lead singer. But don't make that mistake. The very best Anthrax album, The Sound of White Noise. Coming in at number 9 might be another spicy one because I'm going with Queensryche and their album Empire. Now, why do I think this one might be a little spicy? Well, pretty simple. The album right before this might be the greatest concept album in American metal history, Operation Mindcrime. That's how much I think of Empire. I think it's slightly better than that brilliant piece of work. But either way, whether you think Operation Mindcrime is better or Empire is better, this is Queensryche at their absolute peak. Now, why do I think Empire is just a tad bit better? Okay, it may not match the brilliance of a concept album like Operation Mindcrime, but many of my favorite Queensryche songs comes right off this album. We can't get into the brilliance of this one because all of these songs are very good, but Best I Can, very good. Jet City Woman, tremendous. The title track, fantastic. Another Rainy Night, very good. Maybe the most brilliant ballad of all time, Silent Lucidity. And the very last track on here, I absolutely think might be my favorite Queensryche song. Anybody listening? A scathing political satire. So, yeah, this one, if you say, no, Metal Dude, you got to pick Operation Mindcrime, I'm not going to argue too much. But if you've never listened to the brilliance of this album, because it tackles a lot of really heavy social issues, check it out. Empire. Coming in at number 8, Savatage, Hall of the Mountain King. Like with many of these artists, it really comes down to maybe a couple of albums that are worthy of this spot. And in particular with Savatage, there's 2 right together that I think are absolutely their best. Hall of the Mountain King and Gutter Ballet. What makes those 2 albums stand out above the entire collection? Well, this is the start of the three-headed monster. And what I mean by that is you have on vocals John Oliva, one of the most underrated vocalists of all time. Just a menacing, growling voice. Secondly, you have his brother Chris Oliva on guitars. One of the best guitarists in heavy metal history. Such wonderful tone and riffs and solos. He's one of those guitarists that had it all. But also, this is the beginning of the Paul O'Neill era. And to many casual observers, you may say, who's Paul O'Neill? He's the visionary behind many of the great albums of Savatage. What a songwriter. He leads them through this period of time. Now, if you like power metal or traditional metal, Hall of the Mountain King's for you. But I will admit, if you lean more towards a progressive metal or a symphonic metal, Gutter Ballet might be your choice. Either way, 2 very worthy albums. But I went with, at number 8, Hall of the Mountain King. Coming in at number 7, Soundgarden, Bad Motorfinger. I mentioned Dirt a little bit earlier, but 1 year earlier was the greatest grunge metal album of all time. Soundgarden, their very first few albums were so heavy. Chris Cornell's vocals were so amazing. I think Chris Cornell, probably in my top 5 singers of all time. His voice, especially on this album, unbelievable. I tell people, if you want to see vocal prowess at its best, go to Bad Motorfinger and pull up the song Slaves and Bulldozers and be prepared to be amazed at the range and power of Chris Cornell's voice. Soundgarden has several great songs on this. It starts off with Rusty Cage. Maybe my favorite Soundgarden song of all time, Outshined. And again, Slaves and Bulldozers comes in here. This thing is just chock full. The grunge metal movement, blink and you miss it. But when you talk about the best of the bunch, you're talking about Alice in Chains, and you're talking about right here, early Soundgarden. Hard to beat. Coming in at number 6, Megadeth with Rust in Peace. Another perfect album. Now, if there's one area where I feel like the American metal movement contributed most of all to the overall metal movement, it has to be in the birth of the thrash metal movement. And the founders of the thrash metal movement, Metallica. And one of the founding members of Metallica Dave Mustaine, who of course is the founder of Megadeth, puts out a ton of great albums over the years. Just announced his final album and tour just a few months back. But I think most people agree that if you look at the entirety of the Megadeth catalog, Rust in Peace and Countdown to Extinction are amongst his best. Now, I picked Rust in Peace for a lot of different reasons. One of those is the opening track, Holy Wars, The Punishment Due. I believe this is Dave Mustaine and lead guitarist Marty Freeman's best guitar work, one of the best guitar songs in the history of the thrash metal movement. Hangar 18, also good. Take No Prisoners, Tornado of Souls, Lucretia. This album has it all. So once again, the thrash metal movement, such a huge part of the celebration of America's top 25. Coming in at number 5, The Band Over My Shoulder, Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. Everybody's familiar with the big hits on this album. You have Welcome to the Jungle, which is played at every sporting event you can ever go to. The biggest hit off this, Sweet Child of Mine, but it had so many great songs on it. Again, a perfect album. Paradise City, Night Train, My Michelle, Rocket Queen. And maybe my personal favorite, The Attitude on Out to Get Me. Oh, just a sensational song. Really loved this album from Guns N' Roses. I think this is by far not only the best Guns N' Roses album. I wasn't really a big fan of some of their Use Your Illusion era, but I think this is also the best hair metal album in the entire movement. Coming in at number 4, a big old slab of Texas heavy metal known as Pantera, Cowboys from Hell. Now, you would probably win a lot of trivia contests if you said to people, this is Pantera's 5th studio album. They had an entire career in kind of a glam metal act, but repackages themselves right here. Many people think of Pantera, Cowboys from Hell as their debut album because it is so different from the rest of their catalog, and it is an absolute masterpiece. The title track, sensational, Cowboys from Hell, Psycho Holiday, Primal Concrete Sledge. Maybe my favorite Pantera song of all time, Cemetery Gates, Domination. And if you go way towards the end of the album, one of the hidden gems, in my opinion, of the Pantera catalog, The Sleep. Once again, Pantera has their first 2 albums. It was touch and go which one to select. Cowboys from Hell is very good. Vulgar Display of Power is very good. But at the end, I went with this one. I think it's the absolute best. Coming in at number 4, Pantera, Cowboys from Hell. Coming in at number 3, might be a big surprise to a lot of people, unless you've been a fan of the channel. Riot, Fire Down Under. I will say that this is the most underrated heavy metal band and album in history. We've talked about all the reasons why. I think Riot would have been as big, if not bigger, than the Iron Maidens and the Judas Priests of the world, except for one kind of misstep. Putting a flaming seal on the front of your album just doesn't scream metal. And I just think a lot of people missed what is one of the most sensational metal albums of all time. You have the title track, of course, Fire Down Under, one of the best riffs you're ever going to hear. But you've got the unbelievably good Swords and Tequila, kind of a post-apocalyptic song. You have a really cool song called The Outlaw, kind of takes an old West feel, complete with the end of the song is just Mark Reale just shredding in the background while this bandito goes off on this rant in Spanish. You have Altar of the King, which is more of a medieval power metal. The list goes on and on. If there's an album in this top 10 you probably haven't heard of, this might be the one. Go out and find it. Riot, Fire Down Under. Coming in at number 2. Again, probably not a big surprise if you're a fan of this channel. Dio, Holy Diver. Once again, Ronnie James Dio, one, if I believe, uncontroversially, the greatest heavy metal singer to come from the United States of America. Has a wonderful start to his career with Rainbow, but again, Ritchie Blackmore, Rainbow, I consider that a British band. Joins up with Sabbath. Once again, you can't get more British than Black Sabbath. But after leaving Black Sabbath, he starts his own solo career, so I consider all of the Dio solo albums to be American-made. And Holy Diver, once again, broken record alert, is a perfect album. What a way to start Stand Up and Shout, the title track, Holy Diver. Many people consider that their favorite Dio song. Don't Talk to Strangers really shows off Dio's vocal prowess. Rainbow in the Dark, my personal favorite off that album. It closes with another one, Shame on the Night. I point to people and say, if you want to understand the power in Ronnie James Dio's voice, just pull up Shame on the Night. Again, I don't think Dio ever quite was able to duplicate that very first album, but again, one of the greatest heavy metal albums of all time, Holy Diver. Drum roll, please. The greatest American metal album of all time is produced by the greatest American metal band of all time. America's gift to heavy metal, Metallica, and their album, Ride the Lightning. Once again, when you're starting to talk about Metallica, I could go off in a lot of different directions. There's a lot of people that are scratching their head right now and going, not Master of Puppets? No, not Master of Puppets. Ride the Lightning, to me, is just a teensy bit better. You've got such amazing songs on here. For Whom the Bell Tolls, clearly one of their classics. My personal favorite Metallica song, Fade to Black. Such a brilliant piece there. Creeping Death, the metal version of the story of Moses. Unbelievable stuff there. One of my favorites. I'll give you a underground, a little bit buried Metallica classic, Trapped Under Ice. I tell people all the time, when I was a little kid, they had those Omen movies, and one of the scenes was the devil guy puts his brother through the ice in a hockey game. Just horrific. I'm guessing Metallica saw that movie too, because this song is right out of there. Anyway, the list goes on and on. Metallica, there's no doubt in my mind, the greatest band that's come out. The thrash metal movement, we talked about its importance in metal history, founded by this crew. James Hetfield, Kirk Hammett, the late, great Cliff Burton, and of course Lars Ulrich. The greatest band, the greatest album. You can pick from several, but to me, the number one album is Ride the Lightning. And that's the list. Congratulations, America, for 250 years, and in particular, a nice 50 years of fantastic heavy metal contributing to the world. And if you want to keep this party going, join us next week. We're going to talk about the top 25 heavy metal songs produced by America. We're going to just keep this party rolling for the next 2 weeks. In the meantime, this is the Metal Dude signing off. Take care.